Chapter 17, Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. The next morning, they all headed back to their old stomping grounds at Dragon Hall. Evie felt a momentary rush of nostalgia for the place. Even though it was no Ordon prep, she had always loved coming to Dragon Hall, especially after all those isolated years of castle schooling. The front steps of the mausoleum were full of students tripping each other and pushing their way up the stairs in the usual morning chaos. Once again, the kids stared as they noticed Mal, Jay, Carlos, and Evie in their midst. The whispers buzzed through the crowd. "Isn't that Mal? What's she doing here? Did you hear she turned her mother into a lizard? Don't stare or she'll turn you into one." Evie saw that Mal was trying to smile at them, but when she did, the kids ran from her. How am I ever going to connect with them if they can't see past my old reputation? She asked Evie with a sigh. I'm not my mom. It seems like people in Ordon finally get that, but maybe everyone on the Isle will always think of me as the old Mal. They'll come around, Evie said firmly, as she looped her arm through Mal's. And if they don't, Mal will burn them with her dragon fire, said Jay with a laugh. The girls glared at him. Not the point, Jay, said Mal. He held up his hands in surrender. I was just kidding. A trembling La Foudre awaited them at the entrance of the school. Welcome back to Dragon Hall. Please follow me. Dr. Facilier is expecting you. He groveled. Ow. Bowing so low his forehead almost touched the floor. La Foudre led them to the headmaster's hidden office in the Athenaeum of Secrets. Dr. Facilier was seated at his faded velvet chair, but he stood when they entered. Welcome back, he said with a terrifying grin. He was as tall and slender as ever, almost as thin as his mustache. He shook their hands with his long, bony fingers. Dr. Facilier never failed to strike fear into the hearts of Dragon Hall's pupils, and Evie knew the four of them were having difficulty remembering that they were no longer under his supervision. They were Ordon prep students now, and protected by fairy godmothers, she reminded herself. Now, what brings the four of you here? He asked as they all sat down. Not looking to come back, I presume. Or are you? He laughed heartily at his own joke. Evie shot the other three a nervous smile. Planning to trap us here, Dr. Facilier? She asked lightly. Oh, no, he said, with a wave of his hand. As much as I would enjoy trying, I don't think that would be beneficial to anyone. Mal cleared her throat and sat up straight. Ordon Prep is expanding its program to bring more students from the Isle of the Lost over to the mainland, she told him. So we were hoping you could distribute these applications and encourage kids to sign up. And as you discussed with the Royal Council, tomorrow we will be available to talk to students and answer any questions they might have about Ordon. Carlos opened his backpack and handed over a stack of papers to their old headmaster. Here you go, he said. Dr. Facilier picked up one of the documents. And how many kids from the Isle of the Lost is Ordon Prep accepting? 4, said Jay. I see, Dr. Facilier said as he continued to study the forms. And if I do this for you, what's my cut? Mal blinked. Your cut? Excuse me? Asked Evie as Carlos hesitated to remove more application forms from his backpack. Your cut, said Jay deadpan. Your bribe, you mean. The headmaster of Dragon Hall leaned back on his chair, put his feet up on his desk, and took a moment to admire his shiny shoes. Exactly. What do I get in return for sending students to your program? The joy of knowing they're learning and well cared for, Evie said indignantly. Dr. Facilier, that's not really how it works, said Mal sharply. We don't do kickbacks or deliver bribes, especially not in Ordon. Dr. Facilier chuckled, sending shivers up their spines. Let me remind you, you're back on the Isle of the Lost now. What do you want, Jay asked bluntly. Yeah, spill it, said Carlos. Evie looked at the boys, alarmed, but Mal nodded. I suppose it's the price of doing business, she said. Mal gave Evie a look that said, just trust me. I'm glad we're in agreement, said Dr. Facilier with a smug smile. I don't ask for much. You know my younger daughter Celia, don't you? Mal narrowed her eyes. I don't think we've met, no. She feels very left out when she hears all the stories that her sister Freddie has been telling her about Oridon. Very left out indeed, said Dr. Facilier meaningfully. Mal and Evie exchanged a glance. We're not on the admissions committee, said Evie. But I'm sure you could put in a good word, said Dr. Facilier. Mal raised an eyebrow. We'll take that under advisement, she said. That is, if you honor your end of the bargain. You see that you do, said Dr. Facilier. So for tomorrow, you will be speaking with students at some kind of round-table discussion? Yes, said Mal. We're going to tell them all about Oridon Prep. I believe we've been given the study hall for our presentation. Dr. Facilier sighed. Fine, I don't see how I can stop you, since I've been ordered by Fairy Godmother to let you in. Mal nodded. The four of them began to stand up to say their goodbyes. Also, said Evie, we're going to be sending over posters, marketing materials, to encourage the kids to apply. It would be great if we could put up some here at Dragon Hall as well. Dr. Facilier shrugged. I suppose we could agree to that, he said. Great, said Mal. Just remember her name, Celia. Of course, said Mal. We'll do our best. The four of them shook Dr. Facilier's hand. Evie knew they weren't in the business of taking bribes. If Celia deserved to get into Oridon Prep, she would. But it would be on her own merit, not because the VKs swayed the committee. They left the application forms at the headmaster's office and reminded him of the deadline. A pleasure doing business with you, said Dr. Facilier, ushering them out of his office. Oh, and here's Celia now. Celia, come meet these fine folk. Celia jumped back. It was obvious to Evie that she had been eavesdropping at the door. Oh, hi, Dad, she said. She wore a red dress and a little top hat that matched her father's, and she was holding a deck of cards. Celia, this is Mal, Evie, Carlos, and Jay. They used to be my top students here, but unfortunately they go to Oridon Prep now. Nice to meet you, said Celia. Want to hear your fortune? Dr. Facilier smiled proudly. That's my girl. He closed the door, and the four VKs were left in the hallway with Celia. They all hesitated, but it was clear Celia was intent on reading someone their cards. Sure, tell me my fortune, Evie relented. She could humor the kid, right? We're going to talk to a few more teachers to make sure they tell kids about the Oridon Prep Roundtable tomorrow, said Mal. I don't trust Dr. Facilier to get those applications out. Maybe Lady Tremaine can help, since Dizzy really wants to go to Oridon. Sounds like a plan, said Carlos. Jay, you go find Coach Gaston in PE, and I'll hit up Madame Mim. I'll go meet Professor Gothel and catch up with you guys at the hideout after hearing my fortune, said Evie. They nodded and went their separate ways. Celia led Evie to a quiet desk in the library. She offered the cards to Evie to shuffle. Evie closed her eyes and shuffled them. Celia took the cards back and laid them out in 3 piles. Then she revealed the top card of each deck. These 3 cards represent the past, the present, and the future, she told Evie. The first card is the Tower. It means you came from a difficult past. You were trapped and in danger. Pretty much. I am from the Isle of the Lost, said Evie. I was exiled to our castle with my mother, the evil queen. Dangerous indeed, said Celia. When I missed our usual Friday face mask, she wanted to murder me, said Evie with a roll of her eyes. In truth, she did miss her shallow, beauty-obsessed mother just a little bit. Still, she would rather keep her distance while they were on the Isle. It just wasn't worth it when her mother would never understand the things Evie wanted to accomplish. On Thursdays, we practiced smiling and waving. Celia snorted. She pointed to the second card on the table. The 10 of Pentacles. This is your present. It means you have strength behind you, that you belong to a group of people who have your back. They bring you a lot of luck. Evie smiled. I have an amazing group of friends. And the third card is your future. Oh, said Celia, staring at the card. It's dark. Excuse me. It is? Asked Evie nervously. Very. This is the judgment card. It means change, mostly for the worse. This card means disasters on the horizon. Something terrible is about to happen, and... Celia drew out the word, quirking her eyebrows at Evie. If you want to know how to prevent it, you'll have to buy another session. Another session? How much was this one? Asked Evie. I didn't realize you charged. Of course I do. Nothing's free in this world, Celia smirked and named her price. Okay, said Evie, opening her purse and handing over a few gold coins, but I'm not paying for another one. Really? I don't advise that. You should really find out how to avoid whatever it is the judgment has foretold, or you should at least try to discover who is conspiring against you guys. Evie knew a hustle when she saw one. Nice try, but I'll take my chances, she said with a sweet smile. Suit yourself, said Celia, putting her cards away. Evie shook her head. She was far from superstitious and was highly skeptical, and the future could be divined from a few fortune cards. She wondered about Celia's chances with the Ordon Prep Admissions Committee. So far, all Evie could see was a trickster through and through. But of course, that didn't mean there wasn't more to Celia. After all, there had been more to Evie and her friends. It was going to be interesting to see if Celia ended up at Ordon, that for sure.